Hello, how are you today, viewers? We are so glad to see you. It's going to be a great, great program today. Is there a book inside you just yearning to be shared? How can you tell if your idea is a blog post, an article series, or a published book? My guest today is going to tell us. Hi, I'm Patricia Durgan, and this is Marketers on a Mission. We present marketing tutorials by and for Christian writers, speakers, and artists. This month we're presenting the Right Start Online Summit. 20 experts are sharing 20 secrets in 20 days, and it's going so wonderfully. Today is going to top us off. This is episode number 220. When does your idea become a book? With author Nancie Carmichael. Hello, Nancie. How are you?
Hi, Patricia. I'm good.
It's so good to see you.
Snowy and cold, and I thought this morning, this is the perfect time to write.
Oh.
Get the fire going. So I hope all you writers out there, potential and already published, take advantage of it.
That's a great idea. And you even have something warm in your cup. Show us that beautiful cup.
My sister's coffee, which is French roast, and it helps me write. It's my no.
Before we get started with the masterclass, we've got a lot to cover today and some surprises for some viewers. It's just wonderful. Tell us about The Unexpected Power of Home. This is your latest book. Tell us about this and why you say that it's so important, why we need home more than ever, Nancie.
Oh, it's powerful. Home is many things. It is the most personal place of all of us, and it is the most instructive place. We can learn so much about it. It's so common. And yet, when we start to look at our home, what shaped it? Why do we do home the way we do? And we look back at what we were given from our parents and our heritage, and then what do we do with that stuff? How do we make a home a new place? Home is a powerful place. It's where the gospel gets personal and where it's practical for sure, and where it's powerful. It shapes lives. And I think our country needs it more than ever, our families, everyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you've been writing, I think, for a few weeks now, haven't you?
Just a few. Oh, my goodness. What was that all about? I sold my first short story when I was 16 years old in fiction, and then I went away to college. I married this wonderful guy who turns into this entrepreneur who wants to do publishing, so I'm just kind of keeping up with him and doing a lot of I started out doing book reviews, Barbara. That's how I got started. Reading books and then writing book reviews. It was a good discipline. The thing I want to tell everyone is everybody has to start somewhere. You see, I want to write this book. Well, where do you start? Mm-hmm. Start with what's available to you. And when we were publishing way back in the day, Bill was editor of Logos Journal, which eventually became Charisma. And then we started with Virtue Magazine and Christian Parenting Today. I just started doing what I could do. Interviews and book reviews and articles, and then it's turned into columns. And I just did this for many years. But I wanted to write a book. And I tried, and it just I had a really tough time with it. So maybe you're like I am, and you think, how, and now we're doing blogs, right? We're doing blogs or Facebook posts or, an email, whatever it is you're doing. Can that turn into a book? Is it a book? And so what I wanted to share with you is, first of all, my experience on how I went from a column writer into an author of a book. And it about killed me. Just between you and me. I just about bagged it. I said, I guess I don't do books. I just do articles. And I had a ton of them. I mean, lots and columns. And my husband, who is a strategic thinker, helped me. He said, what is it you want to say in this book? And I had to narrow it down. And he said a book needs to take the reader on a journey. It's not just a series of thoughts or disconnected or all this stuff. And if you're a speaker or a pastor and you, or whatever, you know, you keep these file folders full of ideas. This is my book, you know, and you put in a quote or you put in an idea, and then it just fills up, and then you look at that thing and goes, does not look like a book. The hardest thing is paring out all of the non-essentials, stripping away all that stuff so that it is the book. So, Patricia, what I did, I had a very small office, kind of like what I have here. I taped the first page of each chapter in my 4 walls, and I had like 12 chapters with the outline of the chapter. And then I walked around the room and looked at it, and I saw, this needs to go. This doesn't belong in that book. And then I saw, I've got a hole here. This idea needs to be developed, and it really is 2 chapters, not just 1. But some people, it depends on how you learn and how you think. Mm-hmm. Maybe you want to use a table where you can walk around the table and literally look at it. What is this book going to say? What is the journey it's going to take the reader on? One of the toughest things we have to get rid of as readers or writers, we think this is such a great idea. This is such a great line. I don't want to lose it because it's so precious. These 6 paragraphs are amazing writing. Well, you need to ditch it. If it doesn't fit, just remember, you're not getting rid of it. It might be another book, and lots of times it is. If you save it in a file, I call it my boneyard, which is crazy, but I do that with every book. And then when I need ideas, I go back to that and look for it. So if you need to visually see it, it depends on your learning patterns, but I needed to literally see the book. What does this book say? Where is it going to go? And what is the felt need that it addresses? Am I just writing my stuff, my feelings, my emotions? Well, that's maybe nice, but what is the gift you're giving the reader? What is it you want to leave people in this world? And let me just tell you, I just came back from a writer's retreat, and I'm very challenged. Thomas Friedman just wrote a book called Thank You for Being Late, and he made a powerful statement. He said that we're living right now in an era as when Gutenberg invented the press. And you know how radically that affected the world on every level.
Wow.
With the internet, with what you're doing, Patricia, with your interviews, Facebook Live, all kinds of things. The message is the same, but the medium and the delivery systems are all different. Mm-hmm. So we have to look at where we are. Mm-hmm. Maybe God is calling you to a blog or whatever it is. I don't know. But we have to realize the times are different. The message has not changed. And I believe with all my heart, we must discern the times. It says in Ecclesiastes, for every season there is a time. And we discern, what are our times? This is really why I wrote the book on home. Because we need it more than ever. This base, this resting, safe place from which we can address the world. Mm. And if we're not there, if we don't protect that, what do we have to say? We're scattered, we're diffused, we're not safe. So home is indeed a powerful place. And this is why I read it, because, home, it's where we raise human beings, right? Little human beings. And where we replenish ourselves, where we hear from God, where we just be grounded. So I think, discern the times, what's going on in our world. Is what I have to say God-breathed message? If not, maybe I need to just spend more time praying, thinking it through.
Mm-hmm.
It's what I've got to say, a passion. And then I think the Lord will help us get that book out or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But don't stop. I just want to encourage people. If God's giving you a message, it's work and it takes intention, but it can be wonderful. So what's most personal is most universal. I believe God deals with us where we are, in our longings, in our weakness, in our brokenness. And when he comes in and he's strong in those places, that's what makes a book powerful.
Mm-hmm.
But it's work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you go back to and elaborate a little bit on, if I can remember it exactly, what's most personal is most universal? That's a very deep thought, Nancie.
It is. And I think that's why we write books, and that's where the most powerful books are. Because if you have, and this is what addresses the felt need. Your book should address a felt need to the reader. Okay, maybe a person's been through abuse or loss or grief. These are common human experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can learn to articulate those, what's personal, what's happened to us, and if we've worked through it, we've distilled it and learned from it, that personal experience will address the felt need. It will feed others. I wrote a book a few years ago called Surviving One Bad Year, and I addressed the need of, getting through. It was during the economic downturn. A lot of people lost a lot of things, and I addressed the issue of loss. But that is, they're personal, they're different, but the common thing was loss. How do you get through it? So think about your own life. What's the material you have in your life? What are the things that have changed you? That is their person through it. So
I lost you here for a second. There we are.
Okay.
Apologize.
Here we are.
Having just a little bit, changing screens out messed me up a little bit.
No worries.
I am nowhere on the scale compared to you. Okay, so I just acknowledge that right away.
Oh,
but,
what's?
Well, I know it's not a competition, but
No.
But I'm going somewhere with this. I've been in the Christian writing field for 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
There are no practical, tangible, there's no practical, tangible proof of that, but regardless. And I have heard felt needs bandied about, that term bandied about, and if you lined up 1,000 people against the wall or in a sanctuary, you'd get 1,000 different definitions. And you just gave the only one that has ever made sense. So
wow.
Thank you.
That's a miracle.
I just can't tell you. I just can't tell you how helpful that is. Thank you.
That's great. Yeah. Well, what you wonder, is my life, do I make a difference? I think that's the longing we all have. So to be able to tell someone how I've been helped, which is the most wonderful thing of all. Mm-hmm. I think we can kind of get inwardly turned on ourselves, and sometimes we write books that they're catharsis, and maybe they just need to go in a drawer and
mm-hmm.
leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
That's important to know. I shelved a book or two. There are times, that book may be just for me. Maybe it was just to get all that stuff out. Or maybe I can go back and look at it again and clean it up and let the Lord redeem that message. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's
full circle, didn't it? Yes,
where I'm giving out of it. Sometimes it just needs to sit a while. It's like you're fixing a crock pot meal. It needs to cook a while.
So let's say that we're in pain or confusion, whatever our topic is.
Right.
We're there.
Right.
How can we get an objective if we don't have access to somebody like you on a Facebook Live program where you're going to review book ideas? How can we get that third party outside experience? Since we're
Well,
in it.
sure, have somebody read it that you trust and get the feedback. I think that's really important to have somebody read it and get their feedback. Somebody that's professional is very helpful. And
Here we go back to conferences. It's why it's so important to go to a Christian Writers Conference. And
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
They will tell you, is this ready for prime time? Maybe not. But how do you get it there? I mean, don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
Please don't give up. I've seen so many people that have a wonderful idea and a wonderful message, and they just can't give birth to it. And it is work. But you must listen to other people, the professionals. They can help you. And they'll tell you, yeah, this is good, or wait a little while, or broaden your message. Yes, this happened to you. You had whatever, let's say it's an eating disorder or whatever, or depression. Don't make it all about you. Get some other stories, broaden it, maybe sticking with the main idea so that it relates to more people. That's one way to develop and grow your idea. Just step back and look at that and see, this is a good idea, this happened, yes, but how can I make it appeal to more while staying with the same felt need, if you will.
Mm-hmm. And viewers, if you've never been to a Christian Writers Conference or a Christian Speakers Conference, when you go, you're almost all, if not all, allow you one-on-one appointments with professionals, 15 minutes. Somebody looks at your work or your idea, which is what we're going to do today for several different people. And Lisa, I got your information, by the way. Mm-hmm. And but it's explain the experience. They're not there to be mean. They're there to help and encourage and clarify.
Right. So good. Yes. They will have the professional advice, and yeah, they're on your team. They want to see you succeed. So it's kind of scary. You have to get tough skin and yet tender too. It's a fine line, but it's excellent. It's so good, so helpful. God bless editors. They're amazing. They're amazing. And, let me just say, you have to believe in your message. So if you get somebody that reads it and doesn't quite understand it, don't throw it away. Just get another one. It's like a doctor's opinion. You might need to get a second opinion. And in the multitude of counselors, there's wisdom. So, you have to be your own best cheerleader sometimes.
Good advice. Where are we in the handout?
I don't know. This is my life. I kind of go all over the map. But let me tell you, here's another thing I've learned. Your book has to be a certain length, okay? I think a lot of people, they will hand us a book that's 10,000 words or 12,000 words. That's not a book yet. That's not a book. You need to have at least 30 to 40,000 words. I would say a book that's 200 pages is about 40 to 45,000 words. So you want a book that's a real book before you submit it.
Okay. And this is both nonfiction as well as fiction, Nancie? Is
that
a good...
I can't, there's all over the map with those, but it has to at least be that long.
Okay.
I mean, there are rare instances like children's books or small. We have published a few small books that are in a unique niche, but overall, your general book should be at least that long to be a book that you're holding, in your hands.
Okay, thank you.
That's practical, but that's just a starting point. Mm-hmm. So if you've got 10, 12,000 words and you think this is my book, I'm going to show somebody, it's not a book yet. Really not a book yet. Mm-hmm. So you might ask, how do you see this? Where could I develop this? And do you see a need in the culture for this? Do you see a need in wherever? So, that's a starting point.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for that. We also had some other You sent me some other information about how do I turn a blog or a series of articles or sermons into a book.
Right. Yeah.
What was your experience with that?
Well, there are standalone type books like a devotional that don't need to be, developed in a whole theme, although they need to have more of a cohesive message. Perhaps it's devotionals and your overarching theme, your title will tell it, and your subtitle should tell it. Those are huge. It might be the idea of grace, or like new every morning, or something like that. Devotionals kind of stand their own. They're not a book that develops with, an idea that follows through the crisis and the solution and all that kind of thing. So a devotional is a different type of thing, but it's helpful to have a common theme that will tie it together. Just look through what's the message that's taking you through, like a devotional. Or if there's another book that's dealing with, for instance, geared to young women on the pressures of how you look in a society, what makes you acceptable, or, you have to know what your message says. Outline it. Outline your whole message, and then outline each chapter. And that will help you see what I am developing. So you have a blog that you've gotten a lot of response on, and you think, this could be a book. I did that, and I'm hopefully this year developing a new book from this idea, because I just keep thinking about it. And I got such a great response. I'm wondering, was this just a one-time blog, or can this be developed? So you just start with that, and you see if it strikes a chord and somebody else is saying, yeah, I feel this way too. If they say, I feel this way too, it's what's most personal is most universal. It answers the longing, the deep longing in your heart. Go ahead, hon.
I want to hear you. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, if there's a deep longing everyone has, which is, I want to make a difference, or I would like to succeed, or I want my family to be this way, or I want my love to be renewed. It's that deep longing. And if you see how the Lord has helped that in you, if you can communicate that answers the felt need. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. So let's go back for just a second. Let's say that we have a blog post or a series of blog posts, and they have hit the chord. We did one. It touched a chord, and we started doing more. And then we want to go to the end result, would be a book, ideally. Is there something in between? If you're a speaker, it could be a presentation and see how that flies, get real life feedback. But what other ideas could help us test the water above a blog post?
Yes, that's a very good idea. I think if you are a speaker, or you have you do retreats, use that idea and develop it into maybe your 3 or 4 sessions that you're doing. I did this with my book called Selah. It's making a difference. And it was after my kids just left. And it's like, now what do I do with my life? Well, I started speaking on that, and everybody else is going, me too, I don't know. And this is what I have, and this is what I see. And some women are saying, I'm so happy they're out of the house. And some women are going, oh no, I miss them terribly. But I thought, this is a huge opportunity to think about the next stage of your life. So I wrote, Selah, stop. Time to stop, think, and step into your future. But it all started with speaking about it. And if you are speaking, it's awesome if you can get response from the people in your audience. Give them a handout with some questions, and then they can send it in to you. That'll help you develop your book.
That is a great idea.
Oh, listen, it helps so much. Or you could say, I wrote a book on prayer. And I did, Desperate for God, how he meets us when we pray. And so when I spoke on it before, then I did the book, and I gave handouts. Where did God meet you? Where were you most desperate, and how did he meet you? Oh, the responses was so amazing and so helpful. So we can all share, and with the internet, with email, all of these things. Get the conversation going and see where it leads you, and it'll develop.
I love that. If it's God's dream in you, his message in you, it can't go anywhere as long as you allow it to grow. He will see that it grows.
Exactly.
It can't be stopped. But also, going back to your suggestion, is if you're there speaking and you give a handout and invite people to email their responses, then you have it in writing and you don't have to remember it.
That's right.
Because I can't remember.
And then get their name, please, and their email, so that later you can email them and ask permission to use their story. This is really important, because then you're thinking, who was that woman? And, you have to be ethical. You can't use people's illustrations without asking them. So this is very good to follow up and make sure you have their permission to tell their story.
Perfect. That is
and
perfect.
If necessary, change names, or whatever, to protect people if they want to. So,
Rhonda, I got your information, so thanks very much for submitting that. We're getting still a few submissions as we're going along. May I share some comments with you and questions, Nancie?
Sure.
We got a ton of people here.
Awesome. I love it.
I'll try to be more specific. Let's see. Let me look at my list here. Barb Haley's here. Lisa Kibler, Linda Riley, Tammy Whitehurst, Angie Mays. I have been mispronouncing your name, Angie. I apologize, and you'll probably have to correct me again, and that's okay. Tracy Krupp, Judy Ulray, Melissa Henderson, Dee Lundgren, Janet McHenry. Lots of good people, good questions. Let's see. Melissa says, what a great way, and so does Janet too. Janet says, Janet McHenry, love the idea of taping chapter ideas on the walls. I'm very visually oriented, even though I'm vision impaired.
Right.
And you can have it in your head for years. I mean, you put it out visually and the holes just pop out, don't they?
They do. It was amazing. I struggled with it for months before I finally did that. It was a revelation to me. Mm-hmm. So any way that works for you, try it. But yeah, that was awesome.
Perfect. Let's see what Angie May says. 200 pages is about 40,000
words.
About 45,000 words, and she's discouraged at those numbers. She's gotten her book down to 90,000 from 130,000.
Well, there are books that are that long, and that's great. You're going to have a bigger book. It's going to run the costs up more. But if that's the message, and there are books that are that big and do very well, that's okay. I'm saying it has to be a minimum. Minimum. So, but sometimes you might think, do I have 2 books here? And often that's true. There are 2 books, or ideas for another, or 3. So just make sure your message, people's attention is shorter these days, unfortunately. And this is crazy. It's practical too, though. But shipping costs are getting so high too. So you have a big book, and shipping costs, publishers might think twice about the production of a bigger book. I mean, it has to really be good, in my humble opinion, to have a bigger book. But there are very successful authors who do that. But it is a factor. So think about that.
That's a great point. And how, I know we're just talking generalities here. You're not making a blanket statement about a specific person. There's not enough information to do that. But generally, is that, excuse me, I'm trying to word it correctly. Is that going to fly with a really large book, going to fly with a first-time author generally?
Probably not. Unless they just have such a compelling message. But you know what? It's all subject to editing, and a great editor can look at this book that's pretty big, and if the message is that compelling, and they see an audience for it, and they see the felt need, and they see that the person writing it has credibility, then okay, those are things just to consider.
Would you suggest that anybody, not just whatever size your book is, that we get it professionally edited before we submit it?
Oh yes. Oh, I wish I'd done that the first time. I did these columns for many years for Virtue Magazine, and then I wrote for a lot of other magazines too. And I got great response from readers. So I just started patching all these writings together, and then I showed it to a publisher who shall remain nameless. He said, "This is not a book yet." And I was so hurt. It's like, oh, but people said it was good. But Patricia, it wasn't. He was right. And I had to back up and go, okay, what will make it a book? And that's when I learned it needs to have a cohesive message. And maybe, I wrote, so many columns. Stop with that. Get a few that are similar, such as perhaps grace or whatever it is, and then develop the book out of that. Okay. That wasn't standalone. I mean, anyway, the thing I learned is to listen to a professional. He was right, and I learned then what a book was, as opposed to an article or a blog.
And this is a sign of a professional, isn't it? You listen.
It's called, put it on your big girl panties and listening and responding. Yeah, that's how you become a professional. We all are learners, and I'm still learning. I have so much still to learn. I just learned so much last week. And there's so many new things to learn. It's a different era. It's a different world. It's a different audience, while the felt needs are the same. So, yeah.
Is it fair to say that when we're trying to decide, when someone has told us something that we don't want to hear, there's an intersection there? Are we going to pay more attention? Which is more important, our ego or our message?
Wow. If your ego's in charge, the message doesn't have room. Because our message is the most powerful thing in the world. But what we have to say is because the Lord is changing us and making us and restoring us. That's all that's going to last. So, let it go. Let it go.
Lynn Hartke's here. Lynn, if you've got something, send it, sister. If you got it, send it right now. Melinda's laughing at the big girl panties.
It's the truth.
Let's see. So are you ready to perhaps look at some? I don't want to rush you in your presentation.
Sure.
Are we ready for looking at reviews?
I'll do the best I can.
So let me also let everybody know that because we're looking at we as the Imperial way.
Right.
It's going to be looking at the review.
No, you and me.
That means that we will probably run over a little bit because I still want to tell you about the conference. So give me a heads up, a yes, I can stay, or I'll catch the replay, or some kind of acknowledgement that that's all right with you if we run over just a little bit. And we will begin, and you just catch up, or vice versa. I'll catch up with you.
Okay, we'll do it.
Let me share my screen, Nancy. Let's see if this is the right screen. Sometimes I get it right. Sometimes I don't. Ooh. Do you see book ideas for review, Nancy?
I do. Well,
yay.
Yes, I do. I see it. Okay.
So here are 3 things to remember as we go forward. We'll review as many book ideas as we have and time allows. The offer closes when today's live program ends. So if you're watching this in replay, of course, Nancy's at home asleep. So she's not going to be able to review your book idea.
Maybe not.
Go enroll. The reason that people have these already, they've already submitted these because they have enrolled in the Right Start Online Summit, marketersonamission.com. And this is one of the perks of having being enrolled. So that's the very first one. Timmy, if you can read that.
Oh, it looks awesome. Sure, I'd be interested in that. And I love the idea that she's got the sequels, because when publishers start with a fiction, they want to have more than one book. They have like three to five. That's great. Include with your proposal the outline of the sequels or just main ideas. So when you invest in a fiction author, you want to have more.
Okay, and so you're saying if I'm a first-time author and I have an idea for a sequel, I'm only submitting the one for
Right.
a book proposal or a book idea at a conference.
Right.
Do still include that
Yes.
there's an idea here, a theme.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And they may not want it, but it's wonderful to have that option. And they may say, well, I like this, but how about this? So it's the willingness that you have to work, and you're committed. You're committed to writing books. You're not just, a one-hit wonder.
Okay. Okay. And can you tell us just how important that is? Will you hit on that before we go to the next one?
Well, publisher, if they're going to invest in it's a big investment to invest in an author. So you want the stable of what they can produce or the ideas. So I think, that's really important.
Okay. Okay. Excuse me. All right. Next, we will go to. Here we are.
Ooh, when doing right turns out wrong. Wow.
I was supposed
That
to.
looks fabulous. Do you want me to read these aloud?
I was supposed to shield her name, and I see that in the body of it. I completely missed that. So
my question would be: is this a real person and a real story? And I guess it is, which is great.
Yes,
That's the credibility. That's the credibility, and I love it. And I think that's a fabulous. Unfortunately, too common. What's happening in our culture. Mm-hmm. How we need not easy answers, but real answers. And the person that's been through this, oh, God bless you. I would love to see this be a book. Finding hope and healing.
While we're here, let's clarify something.
Sure.
I don't want to lead anybody astray, and I know that you have no intention of doing that either. So when you're saying that this is a solid idea, move forward on it.
Right.
That's all you're saying. Is that correct?
That's all I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, and this is pretty, reading a couple paragraphs initially. You don't make those instant decisions, any editor. But I'm just saying that would resonate, definitely.
Yes. Thank you. It's just good to clarify people's hopes, We don't want to hurt people's hearts.
Sure. I just would say go for it. Go for it.
Yeah. That is based upon a true story. That is Dee's story. So
and
okay,
several people that would want to read that.
Oh, that's what she needs to hear right there.
She does, and as well as professionals. Okay, romantic suspense. Okay. Woman with baby flees an abusive husband, and he realizes someone trying to kill her. He seeks to protect her. Oh my goodness. And he has an identical twin brother. Well, I would just say I want to know more. This looks... I'm not a professional fiction person, although I love to read. But if you found somebody that's in fiction, run that idea across them. But telling a good story, everyone loves a story, and so find someone that's good at that. But I'd say I want to encourage you. It sounds intriguing, but
Okay.
I've got a stack of fiction I read in February, and so I can hardly wait to do some of that reading.
Okay.
Fun.
Let's see, where were we? We were just reading romantic suspense. Let me
Yes.
get back on the screen and let you read the next one. We had a couple of submissions in between there. All right, next, BG.
Ooh, abandonment of my father as a result of an affair led me down. Now, see, this story is a common felt need. Who's my father? And everyone wants to know that, to know the Abba Father. So the question, do you write it as a memoir or a fiction story? That's a good question. I think you just have to start writing it. I would start out with a memoir, although I think I would. And I don't know her situation yet.
Uh-huh.
And once she got the story out, get that story out. Might not be pretty and not finished or not finessed, but just get it done. First drafts are hugely important. Write your story, and then you can look at it and say, maybe I need to change names, situations, but start with the authentic story, which is your story first. Mm-hmm. And then if you want to or need to, you could make it fiction, but first start with your authentic story in your words, in your voice, get it done, and then you can look at it and see what needs to happen with it. Maybe it's just for you, maybe not, but get it done.
That's great advice. I'm hearing you say, don't try to write 2 books at the same time.
Right, that's it. And I think that's how we get stuck, because we're going, I want to tell this, but I'm kind of afraid to. I don't want to hurt anyone. Just tell it first. Mm-hmm. I have seen this happen where someone wrote a story and trying to protect it was dealt with abuse, but then a few years later they realized they should have just told the true story first. I would just start there, and then on a very sensitive thing like that, let it sit a little bit, and then you can revisit it. But first of all, get it out. Yeah, don't try to edit yourself, fix it or make it pretty or tie up all the ends. Get the raw story out there, and then see what you've got.
That's great advice. Let's see. Next we have TC.
I'm assuming this might be a fiction story, Voyage to Redemption. A nurse practitioner unwillingly participates in an abortion to save a mother's life. And then she takes a job on a cruise ship, blindsided, when she's made chief medical officer. So this deals with ethics and secrets and goodness. But the ending, the redemption story, I like that a lot. Voyage to Redemption, that's great. With the cruise ship idea, that could be really great. A fun story along with a big message, an important message I think a lot of people struggle with. I think this kind of scenario was great because you're dealing with some big ethical situations with a story. And this is a nice, softer way to approach, today it's doing March for Life, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's a big issue in our culture. So to tell a story is a powerful way to deal with these things. So I'd love to see that develop. Go for it. Finish it off.
And this is this keeps us away because of the interwoven into the story. Mm-hmm. It keeps us away from preaching, hopefully.
Yeah, I know, because there's a human factor. Oh, we can't be judgmental. Jesus never called us to judge. Never, never, never. He called us to love. So let's do it.
That was a great point. Great point. Let's go back and we'll go to the next one. LR.
Aging well, the Jesus generation. Oh man, that was me. And I'm working on it. Personal stories and trends. I like that a lot, of course, because you're hitting me. But yeah, we were in the Jesus movement and Haight-Ashbury, okay? We were youth pastors in the Haight-Ashbury, and I do it. That's fabulous. Where do we go from here? I think we're saying we don't want to fade away into the woodwork, and I think that's a great message, but you have to do it really soon before we all get too old to read the book.
Great point.
Really, we don't want to retire. We want to refire. So go for it.
Oh, I love that.
You'd have a big audience. You would have a big audience. So go for it.
Let's see. I lost my place. Okay. Then we are. Let me. Here we are. Mm-hmm. I'm doing all the tech as well as hosting as well as listening.
Wow, you're amazing.
Oh, here we go. LK.
Founding pastor kicked out of leadership role of his congregation by an associate who's been taken in by greed. Well, I'll bet this story's been told a million times. But the associate pastor's under the sway of a Wiccan, whose mission is part of a larger one to discredit and damage the Christian truth. So it sounds to me like a lot of spiritual warfare and a very gripping story that needs to be completely developed. I mean, that's just a seed of an idea, but you've got to develop the whole story. Who are your characters? Tell about them. The tension and all that.
Is
good idea, but develop it.
There we go. And I don't know this person, so I'm not putting anything in. Is it possible to have a really strong spiritual warfare message and do well?
Well, look at Peretti's book on darkness. I forget the exact title of his book. It was rejected by so many publishers before it was finally published. But absolutely, I mean, he told it in a fantastical way, but it deals with spiritual warfare, which is very real, very real. I mean, but it has to be told well. The story has to be told well and not cheesy, if I can say it that way.
Yeah, it gets off pretty quickly, doesn't it?
It could. Yeah.
Okay. So just be aware if this is yours.
Sensational or keep in mind the reason for the message and what you're saying, not just fantastic or interesting or wild or crazy. What is the need? What's your takeaway? My husband wrote a book called The Missionary, a novel with David Lambert that did really well. But his whole message was doing God's work in God's way, wrapped around this very gripping story. But they kept their storyline, the message, the heart of why they wrote the book, doing God's work in God's way. So you have to see, I might have a fantastical story, but what's my real takeaway here?
There we go. And all of these things that you're talking about today, if you don't have that skill, and remember what we talked about yesterday with Michelle Yule, there are some who are gifted in these areas and there are some who are skilled in these areas. Skills can be learned.
Yes, they can. I learned, it's true. If you try hard enough, you can. Yeah.
And usually, though, it's not going to fall out of the sky like a Newton's apple. You need to go and be around people who know what they're doing and know what they're talking about, gifted, know more than you do.
It's a craft. It's a craft. And some people have giftedness in certain areas. Don't beat yourself up if you think, well, I'm not going to write a book. It's great. You are a book. The Bible says you're a living book, an epistle. That's the best. And if for some great reason you can write a book out of that, well, wonderful. If not, your authentic life is fabulous. We need that more than anything. That's what's going to last. That's what we take to heaven.
Yes.
There's no books in heaven, sorry. Just us.
That comment was worth the entire program. Everything else is gravy. Gravy.
Don't feel don't feel guilt. Don't feel anything like that. Okay, a survivor of divorce and working with others who are walking through this trauma. Well, sure. Oh, that's a very common felt need. Surviving and thriving during trauma of divorce. Nobody goes into a marriage wanting to divorce, but it happens. It just happens. And how do you thrive through it? There again is a beautiful story. And if you could broaden that with other people's stories, because your felt need, that would sure be great.
Okay. And so the fact that you said that it was a common topic, that doesn't weaken its value at all. It actually strengthens it, doesn't it?
It actually does. But you have to tell it in a way that people relate to it. So start out perhaps with, your perspective, if you've been through it, or how many people do we know who've gone through it? And in the church. And, when people lose people, they bring meals and flowers. When you go through divorce, that doesn't happen. And so how do we minister to people? It's just a reality. How do we help them? So I think, sure, that's a fabulous, fabulous topic.
And so the fact that it is a common topic, and you said it still needs to be unique to that individual and apply to the group.
Oh, it does. It's all in the telling of it, It's like...
Let me show you one more. This is our last one that I have a record of. If anybody else has something you pop it over. This is the time. Barb says she's not enrolled, but she has a nonfiction idea. Can you see that? Is it too small?
Yes, I can see it. 2 Lives to Love, a memoir of God's grace and presence in the 10 years since my husband died. Title came from telling others how I'm healing and getting to know God. I don't see the title.
2 Lives to Love.
2 Lives to Love. 2 Lives to Love, a memoir. Yeah, titles are hugely important, and subtitles. Again, this is a common story. It is a common, but when it happens to you, it sure isn't common.
Mm-hmm.
It's powerful and gripping, and somehow we think it will never happen to us, I'm sure. So to write it in a way that will comfort others or help others understand the person going through it, I think would be just lovely if you can tell that story and get your story told, get it out, and see what you can do with it. Go to a writer's conference or have somebody look at it. And I wish you best.
I'm hearing you say indirectly that every single idea that we saw today is fodder to be taken to a writer's conference or a speaker's conference.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it is. Sure.
So we don't have to have it completely fleshed out. We don't have to have the book written. We don't have to have already written 17 other books.
No, you don't. Just, soldier up there and do it, and get as much done ahead of time as possible. An outline won't get as much interest in, if you have a book finished, that's great, especially if it's fiction.
Okay.
That's what they want, is a finished book.
Okay. And our very first day of the conference, viewers, Janet McHenry, showed us how to write a nonfiction book proposal. So go and watch that replay.
And she's a professional. She's listened to that. If you can, go back and listen to it. It's very helpful.
She stresses outlines as well. Organization keeps your mind from going like this, doesn't it?
Oh, you have to. Yeah. Because it's too shotgun. That's one thing you'll see in a book. It's like, it's just too out there. It needs to be focused. And there again, get rid of those bunny trails, those things that might be nice to say, but they're distractions to the message that you have to say.
Is there an easy way to tell, or is it just by osmosis as you do it, that you're running down a rabbit trail before you get too far down?
Well,
How do you tell?
there's a way I've learned to see it. That is the value of letting it sit just a little bit and then going back and rereading it. You, the author, should be the best first editor of your work before you give it to somebody else. Let it sit a little bit and then reread it, and you'll say, yeah, I kind of got off here. I like that idea, though, and it's so hard to cut our words, our precious words, but cut them. Just do it. You know, like you clean house. You pare back the clutter so that you can really see what you've got there. You need to pare back the clutter in your words. Unnecessary paragraphs, unnecessary thoughts that take you down. And it's so easy to do that when you're speaking or preaching, and you can get on a hobby horse and away we sail down the things. Whoa, reel it back. Stick to what you want to say. People's attentions are shorter than they used to be. So when we started publishing magazines, the average article length was 2,500 words. Then it went to 2,000, then to 15,000, then to now, what is it? They're practically blogs, 500. Unless you're developing a whole thought through Christianity Today or Atlantic Monthly or something, that's a different animal. But I'm talking about just general magazines and blog posts. People's attentions, you have to say more and less. So pare back those words. They're not precious. They're really not. Just to your mom.
None of it relates to this book.
Exactly.
Cindy Sproul's taught on how to write devotions earlier this week, and then Michelle gave us great ideas about along the same lines, but putting those two ladies together, their concepts with yours. We're talking about take them out, but they can still live. They just have to live somewhere else.
Exactly. I do that, yeah. Put it in another folder. And that could be the seed of another book or, you know, a lot of things. Yeah,
and Michelle also suggests, if it's applicable, that you could use these nuggets, these wonderful paragraphs of pure creation,
yes,
as a blog post or a blog post series, or as Susan Neal suggested, a pamphlet to sell, a PDF file format that you put it on, sell it for $2.99, and it segues perfectly into your book.
Absolutely. It
does.
does.
Moving pieces. As you start seeing the possibilities, your mind sort of explodes, doesn't it?
It does. There's a lot. So don't worry about it.
And you don't have to do all of it at once. Nobody does it all at once.
Oh, you can't. No. Yeah. No.
Okay. Any? Let me check and see if we have any other comments or questions before I go right to the. Judy Morrow says, "This has been so great, Nancie."
Oh, thank you.
Here's the wall idea for sure. Angie May says, "I have a draft, but I don't know what." She doesn't quite understand the theme or the takeaway idea. She says, "I might understand it, but I'm just not sure. Are there questions that I can ask myself to be able to recognize the theme?" Any thoughts on that?
Sure. I'd say just keep going, keep writing, honestly, and think. Thinking is great. Get your idea down and then go for a walk. Do something physical, but just keep thinking about that. And then come back to it and write some more. And it'll reveal itself, and maybe it's really going to go somewhere, and maybe it's not, and you can just let it go. But give it some time. Give it some time. Or read some more on the topic. So you have a study on, say, success or whatever it is you're writing about, and you then follow some other thoughts on it or whatever, read up on it, see if any of that strikes a bell, then come back to your perspective of what you're writing on. Just keep noodling away at it and see what you've got.
You're so far beyond your first books. You might not remember this far back, but you also deal with so many new authors, or in that very first few books, those kinds of authors, that level of experience.
Right.
Do you find that, and I don't know that this is true, but do you find that even if it isn't published, it's a help to get it out of your system?
Absolutely. Sure. And you know, you can if you get to the place, if you want to do a book, you can go to Amazon and do Create Space, you know, and do a book. Maybe it's something you want your children to have. There have been so many books that came out of, this is what I want to leave for my children, heritage or a legacy or whatever. It's valid. And you have a story to tell. Every individual has a story to tell that no one else does. So if you find that burning in you, do it. There's a reason.
And again, even if it's not published, you've got it. You've given it life.
Yeah.
You can point to it on your desk.
Right.
And that's if it's not published. If it's published, it's got a whole different kind of life.
Exactly.
But do you find that once that's sort of out of the way, not speaking disrespectfully, then that leaves you open to express a different idea, a new idea, and it takes you different places?
I think it does.
Okay.
You know, and just it's like giving birth to something. It's important to do that. That's the creative process. We're created in our Creator's image. He was the creator, and if there's something you're just wanting to create, maybe it's art or some other medium, let it come forth out of you. It's a wonderful thing. So I encourage people, believe in the dream God's given you.
This has been so wonderful. Let me read. Before I go to the conference, I'm just going to spend a few minutes on it, but it's the West Coast Christian Writers Conference. And let me give you a couple of, let's say, a couple of comments here. Kate Barker says, this has been so wonderful. Thank you, Nancie, for your delightful presentation. Melissa Henderson says, a wonderful, meaningful, valuable time today.
Oh, good. I loved it.
Tracy Crump says, I've enjoyed all the story ideas. Thank you for your time and expertise, Nancie. Yeah, absolutely. We can't get access to somebody of your experience and knowledge and wisdom, down the street or at church, usually. It's highly unlikely that we can. So it's just such a blessing for you and the other professionals who come on every day, but particularly during the summit, and give us just specific deep dives on a particular topic. We can really make progress and understand and fill in those gaping holes that maybe we didn't even know what they were labeled, but now you've helped us.
I'm so glad because, we're all in this together. And so God bless you, what you're doing, Patricia, and all of you. Keep on keeping on. It's great. So
it's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it.
It is. Yeah.
Do you have just a few minutes, Nancie, that I can go to the conference?
Sure.
Okay. Sure. Let me open that window and I will show you quickly. This is the West Coast Christian Writers Conference held February the 14th, 15th, and 16th. They've got a lot going on. They really do have a lot going on. This is the overview.
Robin Jones. She used to write for Christian Parenting back in the day.
Oh, did she? She's one of the keynotes. Bill Giovannetti is the other one. Look at the registration price. This is crazy price. General registration is $229. If you happen to belong to the Inspire Christian Writers group, you can find out about that on this website. Then it reduces that price to $199.
Wow. That looks like a good one. It's worth investing. My goodness. If you can get to something like that, do it. It's fabulous. So great Valentine's present to yourself.
Oh, there you go. Today is the last day of the last chance sale. You can get general admission tickets for $179. This is the last sale before the conference. Move on this. There are pre-conference masterminds, mini masterminds. They are an additional $139, and they are before the conference even starts. They're the day before the conference starts. And when we talked last time, to Laura Christensen, they were already taken, excuse me, they were already taken, but they're taking a waiting list. So just because you see something when anybody asks you to put your name on a waiting list, there's a reason they're asking you that. They're not putting you off. They're trying to help you.
Yeah. So it's worth pursuing, for sure.
The official conference starts Friday, February the 15th at 8 o'clock in the morning, runs till 5:30, and it's Saturday. It runs from 8 o'clock to 4:30. So it's a 2-day conference. You would fly into either Oakland International, which is the closer of the two, or San Francisco International. This is put on and hosted or directed, by Susie Flory. I think you probably have heard of her. She's written several books. Very well known and does a great job. Each of the pre-conferences that I referenced earlier, 3 of them, the last time I looked, 3 of them are sold out. They have more than 3, and they're all limited to 8 participants. First come, first serve. But again, if you put your name on a waiting list, then you can maybe get a chance at enrolling, even though they're technically sold out. Our own Kathy Elliott is going to be presenting. She's a fantastic fiction writer. Sharon Norris Elliott, Janet Kababel Grant is going to be there. She's the owner of the literary agency Books and Such, and lots more professionals are going to be there. These are top quality people, aren't they, Nancie?
Yes, they're quality. And you know what? If you can't go to that one, find another one. So there's a lot of them. So I recommend it highly.
Let me do one more swing on questions and comments. Gail Arbogast says, thank you both so much. Janet Berkey says, I haven't commented, but I listened and it was great. Thanks very much, Janet. Okay, so let me, thanks for staying with us for just a few extra minutes, because we got all those reviews in, and that's just delightful. And, okay, so here's the secret nobody knows but Nancie and me. She may come back and do an entire show of reviews. Not next week, okay? If you'd be interested in that, give us a shout out. And please thank Nancie, as so many others have already done. Thank her for her time and her wisdom and being able and willing to share it.
You bet. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Nancie, for being with us. And thank you, viewers, for being with us for episode number 220. When does your idea become a book? With author Nancie Carmichael. This is the end of the Right Start Online Summit's second week. We have 2 more weeks to go. It's just, this is crazy wonderful.
It's awesome.
10 more professionals are waiting to share their wisdom and experience. You know, every single weekday.
It's like a writer's conference online.
Yes. It's definitely 18 of the 20 presenters are conference faculty members, or directors. So this is the quality of teaching and training and encouragement and insights that you get at a Christian Writers or Speakers Conference. This is why we're suggesting it. I don't get anything from suggesting this.
Right.
This is true. This is why everybody keeps saying it.
No. Well,
that's why everybody keeps saying it.
You better write a book, Patricia.
One day, as the Lord allows. Why are we here? We're here for you, to help you learn the craft of professional writing, speaking, and marketing from those who are already doing it. Because our mission field is online. And when we go online and we speak our message clearly and succinctly, and we know what our message is, we draw those ideal people that Christ has gifted us to serve. They're hungry for our message. And then our message is ready. We deliver it. Their lives are changed. And in some cases, their eternities are changed.
That's awesome.
Lovely. If you're here and you haven't enrolled in the Right Start Online Summit, you don't have to at all. You can watch the free, the programs, the master classes every weekday for free, no obligation. And there's no obligation to sign up either. Here's why you might want to enroll. You get free access to all the Summit's recordings after the Summit ends. You can watch them over and over and over and over in your jammies. And that access ends on December 31st. You've got plenty of time to work it in your schedule. But I closed it intentionally so that you would know there is a window. You need to be motivated to go back and learn, because this stuff is just gold. It's just wonderful. Thank you so much again, Nancy.
Thank you.
See you
Take
next
care.
Monday, everybody.
All right. Bye.